You know the story of the Alamo, a doomed last stand, a handful of rebels, a tidal wave of Mexican troops. But what about the people? Who were the men and women who stood inside those walls? This isn't just a story of muskets and cannons. This is a story of dreams, desperation, and defiance in the face of death. Today, we go beyond the legend and into the lives of the ordinary souls who chose to stand when they could have run. March 6, 1836, dawn. The walls of the Alamo crumble as nearly 2,000 Mexican soldiers charge. Inside, fewer than 200 defenders brace for the end. They knew they couldn't win. They stayed anyway. Among them, David Crockett, a former congressman, a folk hero, but in that moment, just a man with a rifle and a choice. Beside him, James Bowie, knife fighter, land speculator, fighting not just for Texas but for redemption. And William B. Travis, the young commander who drew a line in the sand and asked, "Who will stay and die with me?" Almost every man crossed it. But they weren't all soldiers, and they weren't all men. Susanna Dickinson, just 22, was inside the Alamo with her infant daughter when the siege began. She watched her husband die and survived only to tell the story. Enslaved people like Joe, Travis's manservant, stood inside those walls. He lived to witness history and was one of the few allowed to leave alive. Juan Seguin, one of the few Tejanos who fought for the Texans, was sent out as a messenger and never got to return. His grief never left. The Alamo was lost, but its story was just beginning. Remember the Alamo became a rallying cry for Texan forces, a symbol not of defeat, but of sacrifice. That cry helped win the Battle of San Jacinto and independence for Texas. But here's the truth. The Alamo wasn't a clean story of good versus evil. It was messy, political, complicated. Many defenders fought for freedom, but some owned slaves. Many Mexicans died fighting not for tyranny, but for their own vision of justice. Still, the myth grew because people need heroes. Today, the Alamo is a tourist site, a sacred monument, a battleground of history and ideology. Some see it as a shrine to courage. Others see a sanitized tale that ignores the deeper truths: colonialism, slavery, land theft, racism. In recent years, historians, activists, and descendants of both sides have fought not over the battle, but over how it should be remembered. The men and women who stood inside the Alamo weren't legends. They were people, flawed, fearless, afraid. They weren't fighting just for a flag. They were fighting for family, for freedom, for the future. Their story matters, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. If you believe history deserves depth, not just myth, smash that like button. Comment below. Should we keep the legend of the Alamo, or tell the full, complicated truth? And subscribe to Histify Facts, because behind every flag, every monument, every myth, there's a human story waiting to be uncovered.